Hey, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Young Turks. I am here with the progressive champion, Nina Turner. Hey, Nina, how are you?
Hey, Jimmy, it's fine. It's great to be here with you. I've admired you from afar. You say stuff that I can't, you're my.
Well, I get to swear.
Yeah, you do.
I get to swear and say the F word very loud because I grew up Catholic, all right? So now I just wanted to, before we get into the meat of it, tell me about how much Jerry Springer helps the Democratic Party.
Oh, Jimmy, I'm not going to.
I'm just teasing.
I'm serious because I want the viewers to know that I know the Springer show and I know how he makes his money. He is an entertainer. But Jerry Springer, Jimmy, actually came into Ohio in 2014 and helped me campaign for Secretary of State.
Oh, no kidding.
He did. He really is a deep thinker. People are just judging him based on, the show.
Look at you, educated me. That's just fact.
Yeah, 2014 came to help the sister run for Secretary of State. He's a deep thinker, and I don't know if he would call himself progressive, but I would bet he's more progressive than people think.
Okay, so tell me, that's fantastic. Now, everybody's excited about this conference and how you don't have to be ashamed to be a progressive, and this is what's happening. So,
be ashamed not to be. I mean, it's the opposite here.
Right.
Right, yeah.
So what do you see the progressive movement going forward, right? We just had another setback in California where they installed a pharmaceutical lobbyist as the chairman of the party over the wishes of the electorate, obviously. So what do you think we can do going forward to kind of reform the Democratic Party?
I mean, we got to keep pushing. Jim, you bring up something. I was there with Kimberly Ellis, who was actually here somewhere in this building. And what she did was incredible, and that was really Bernie Kratz and progressives doing the work before the work, which is they were running in their respective districts so that they could be a part of the decision-making process, so that when it came time to vote within the Democratic Party structure, they were there to be able to vote for her. She lost by 62 votes against an establishment Democrat, which says a whole lot for the force of the movement. So we must continue to move. We must continue to run in those spaces so that we are there to cast our vote. The Democratic Party, that's not everybody, but it's these set people who get a chance to run. But we can have influence in that same way. And we know that Ellis asked for an audit because she believes that the results might not be what they said that they were. But the bottom line here is, has she not tried? Have Bernie Kratz and even some Clinton supporters, she was the bridge to bring those two sides together who actually voted for her. And I'm actually proud of what she has accomplished. But it is very telling that, the pharmaceutical,
So that gentleman who's now the chairman of the California Democratic Party literally took $100,000 last year from the pharmaceutical industry to fight against Bernie's bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
For cheaper pharmaceutical drugs inside California, which it could have passed. He took the money. He fought against it. Now he's leading the resistance.
Yeah.
So what do you think about when people use the term the resistance? What I say is that they're just resisting Trump, but they're not resisting corporatism. They're not resisting the military-industrial complex or Wall Street or fracking or any of that. What do you say to when people say the resistance?
No, that's it. It has to be holistic, Jimmy. This is not just about Trump. If you ask people in Flint, is their water dirty because of Mr. Trump? They would say that 3.5 years ago, the Democrats could have done something about that. So this is not just about him, even though he has proven himself up until this point to be unworthy of the office. Let me make that straight. But at the same time, there are other folks who've had the power a lot longer who could have done some things for people, clean water. We could have fixed the Affordable Care Act a long time ago before now, and look what the Republicans are doing. To throw 24 million people off of health care is inhumane. So no, this is not just about resisting Mr. Trump. This is about resisting establishment Democrats. This is about resisting policies that do not lift people. This is about resisting going backwards in this country, and that's from the local level to the federal level. So we got a Democratic mayor in this city. Don't even get me started about the South Side and West Side of Chicago.
Well, he's a bunch
of stuff to resist.
So you're talking about Rahm Emanuel, who is what we would consider a corporate Democrat. He's gone down to he's privatizing parking meters. You know what I mean? Like
closing schools,
200 schools in Chicago, right?
Yes.
Which are community centers. I mean, what is
Yeah.
that? That's devastating to
It is.
to those communities, right? And
Yeah.
and no one really cares. So he's not a champion of public education. The neoliberalism commodifies everything, including education, and that's what we need to
We need
resist.
to resist that too.
So now tell me do you think I don't know how close you followed it, but across the pond, Jeremy Corbyn had a huge victory and pushed back against the conservatives. People and I heard there was another 150,000 people join the Labour Party after the election. So there's a big groundswell. People are pushing back against neoliberalism and corporatism. Do you think that's a good sign for America?
I do. All over the world, revolution is happening all over the world. The masses are rising up to really say what Fannie Lou Hamer said. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, that enough is enough, and that we are going to use our collective energies to force it. And Jimmy, as you and I know, and I know people get discouraged, but change in this country and change in the world never happens from the grass tops. It always happens by the grassroots.
Right.
And it's hard. It's hard work, but it's worthy. It's worth it.
Even to the point of something as simple as, say, gay marriage, right? Let's remember that the Democratic leaders were some of the last people to come around to that, right? Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, they were some of the last people to come around to that. So even when in that, they don't push hard enough. So the establishment media is not a fan of progressives, right? The Washington Post ran 16 negative stories on Bernie in 16 hours. We saw what the establishment media did to Jeremy Corbyn. They tried to tie him to terrorism, right? But people saw through it. Do you think we're at a point where the establishment smears of progressives actually help progressives like it ended up doing for Jeremy Corbyn?
In some ways, but that is why we need independent media like what you guys do. We also need everybody out. Everybody with a smartphone, with a phone now can report some stuff, the truth, and tell the story through their eyes. Yes, it does strengthen. But Jimmy, Nelson Mandela said at one time that it always seems impossible until it is done. And so the candidacy of somebody like a Jeremy Corbyn shows that if we continue to be, it's not just about resistance, it's about resilience. And that is what the progressive movement is about, resilience. If the unionist movement hadn't fought for an 8-hour workday or days off, they would still be working them, to death, working children. If my ancestors hadn't fought, for freedom and liberty and all that good stuff, then I might not be here sitting next to you. If women hadn't fought for their right to vote, progress happens. But it is every generation's responsibility to keep pushing until the day comes, and then we're gonna have something else to fight. It is a never-ending battle, but progressives are on the right track, Jimmy. But we can't just be right about the issues. We have to start winning elections, and we are winning some. We are, but we got to win more.
So what do you say to the people who say that the progressive message doesn't sell in rural America? Do you believe that?
Are you kidding me? No, I do not believe that. And I've traveled all over this country, as you know, for Senator Bernie Sanders. I've traveled in my state. And the people in Chillicothe, Ohio, which is in Ross County, which is a more rural district, want the same thing that the people in Cuyahoga County and Cleveland, where I'm from. They want to know that they can have a good life, not decent. People don't get up for decent. They get up for good. And why can't working class people have good? Is that only reserved for wealthy folks? They want to make sure that they have children, that their children will have a better future than what they had. And I've not had one person in rural America tell me anything different than somebody in urban America has told me. We cannot continue to let people divide us, because what unites us is stronger and deeper than what divides us.
I always try to tell people that, they think, well, if you're in a red state or a rural place or a purple, you have to become more conservative to appeal to those people. And I'm like, well, the whole point of having an agenda or a progressive ideology is to go convince people that our ideology will actually make their life better, because that's why we believe it. If we didn't think it would do that, why would we believe it? So I think if people make the case, in fact, when people are polled, we know this across the country, people are progressive on the issues, right? So people know, people see through the neoliberalism, I think now, and they know that their lives haven't been getting better since 1980, coincidentally. Right. So I would urge people to do you think that candidates should push a progressive agenda even in red rural places, because it will help them and make their lives better?
I do, Jimmy. There's no red or blue way to be poor. Right? There's no black or white way to be poor, Hispanic or Native American or Asian, anybody that's suffering. Now, I will say that people of color, because of the history of discrimination and racism in this country, that I need my white sisters and brothers to understand that the suffering is deeper and more systemic. But if you were to ask somebody, if you were a conservative and I was a liberal, or not, oh Lord, I don't want to be a liberal, progressive, right? And you needed help, you're not going to stop to figure out whether or not I'm progressive or not. You just want to know that I am going to help you. And that is what people who are running for office are going to have to do. You know, the millennial generation, which is the most diverse generation, the largest generation, they showed us what the future should look like. That's why Senator Bernie Sanders won over 2 million more votes than both Secretary Clinton and Mr. Trump combined, is because the millennials know the kind of future that they want to inherit, that Medicare for all can happen. If we can invest $80 billion to house our sisters and brothers in prison, 2.2 million people in prison, why can't we take that same money on the front end and invest it in education? It always seems impossible until it is done. Yes. You got me on my roll, Jimmy. I'm sorry. Let me get you.
When Jimmy Carter got out of the office, there was, I think there was 300,000 people in prison. Now there's over 2.2 million. So it increased sevenfold. And I don't think we had an increase of sevenfold in criminality. We just have started to criminalize poverty in America.
Yes. To be poor in this country, they make you feel like a criminal. And I grew up poor. My parents were working class. My parents got married young. It didn't work out. And so I grew up the majority of my life in a single parent household, Jimmy. And my mother died at the age of 42 years old with her dreams deferred. And I was 22. My baby sister was 12. There's 7 of us. And I am the oldest of those children. And that is why I feel deeply, because I know what it is like to watch my mother cry herself to sleep because she doesn't have money to buy 7 kids Christmas presents, or not to know where our next meal is going to come from, or our electricity is cut off because my mother couldn't pay the bill. Our stories are our strength, Jimmy, and there are millions of people in this country who have the same story. The narrative might be a little different. The way they tell it might be a little different, but suffering is suffering. And unless we can relate to humanity, this is a human experience that we're talking about, not a red or blue or black or white experience. This is about humanity. And it is time that elected officials, people who want the privilege of having the people's power, stand up and start serving the people and stop serving their own damn interests. I'm over it, Jimmy.
I'm over it too.
Yeah.
It's about serving the people, not the donors, and that's the problem, right? People care about the donors too much. We have what I've noticed over my lifetime that it used to be, and because I grew up Catholic, and we had
why you swear so much?
Yes, and so we used to be charitable towards the poor, and we tried to lift them up, and there but for the grace of God go I, and all that stuff. But it seems now that we've shamed people who are poor, and we've shamed work. Like people who have minimum wage jobs, they're like, somehow you should be ashamed of work, and no one should be ashamed. And everybody, and by the way, human dignity does not come by selling your body to a capitalist, right? You are born with human dignity, right? You don't need to go get it from a company or a corporation or a capitalist. You have it inherent in your humanness.
Yeah.
Right?
That's part of our social contract, right? That's part of what the founding fathers, even though at the time they weren't talking about everybody. Right, but we were able to build on that. But yes, human dignity. And we want everybody. You know, I think Helen Keller said it best. She said, one must never consent to creep when one feels the urge to soar. And we want everybody from all walks of life to feel the urge to soar. And we have got to start having those hard conversations. Everybody who voted for Mr. Trump, we have leaders that belittle the people that voted for Mr. Trump. That's not the way to win people over. I'm not going to win you over by calling you names, but I win you over by seeing your humanity and seeing your need and listening to your story. The stories are our strength.
So I agree 100%. I think that the people misread a lot of the Trump supporters because I think that they wanted to smash the establishment, and that was the only way left to do it. Right. And so they took that opportunity. And so everybody wanted to smash. Bernie Sanders' message actually did resonate with a lot of those people because they could tell he was authentic and he wasn't bought, right?
That's right. It was authenticity. I've met and talked to voters who actually voted for Senator Sanders in the primary, but they voted for Mr. Trump in the general election because they were just they want to have somebody, and they wanted somebody in office. Now, they didn't get it this time, but he took over Senator Sanders' populist message in a way. Not to he went all the way to the negative with it. But when he started talking about trade deals, that spoke to people in my home state of Ohio. When he said that the TPP was not going to work, that spoke to people in Ohio and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Now, make no mistake about it, he is unworthy of the office. But just fighting against him alone, after we fight against him, then what's left? Are we going back to business as usual before he got in office? Or will we have a vision and a purpose that is bigger and stronger than all of us? And that is really what the candidacy of Senator Bernie Sanders, and that is why he was able to capture the imagination of so many people, Jimmy, who were not even in the process before he dared to be, as Teddy Roosevelt said, the man in the arena, the doer of the deeds. And that is why we're at the People's Summit right now. 4,000 of our closest friends, Jimmy, are here.
All right. How do we convince everybody to start thinking big?
We're doing it right now.
This is it.
This is it, that the power is in their hands. You know, titles are good, but purpose is better. And if everybody feels as though they have a purpose, they have worth, they have value, and to unite with other people who feel the same way, and for us to see other people's humanity before, soft on people, hard on issues. Soft on people. Now, Jim, you need to work on that because you hard on people and the issues. But I really do mean that we can't tear each other down to get to where we need to be. Now, if somebody is flat out a racist, then we call them what they are. They're sexist or ageist. And I want to say that ageism is not a good look, because I know some folks talking about Senator Sanders can't run because he's going to be, who cares? You know what I mean? Nelson Mandela, the great, came out of prison after 27 years and spoke truth to power and pulled in even people who benefited from an apartheid system. He showed love to them, truth and reconciliation, yes. And he took that country to a higher level. It always seems impossible, he said, until it is done. And that is what we need in this country, an understanding of one another, to fight together, to pray together, not necessarily to fight each other, but to do this damn thing together. Jimmy, you got me cussing. I'm sorry.
Need it, sir. That's great.
Man.
Let me give just a final question. I really appreciate you spending time. You're just an amazing force, and you're exactly what the country needs, and I don't mind saying that as loud as I can. So what? Now, a lot of people are disenchanted with the Democratic Party because we see a rigged system in it. Because of the super delegates, and I just found out California has their own version of super delegates.
Yes.
So, and they just admitted in court that they don't have to run a fair primary.
Cigar smoke room.
Yes,
room, right?
And we did. The Democratic Party just had their lowest fundraising month since 2009. Because of that, I think had a lot to do with it, that they admitted they don't run fair primaries. So what could we do to make sure we have a fair primary? Is there anything we could do? What should we do?
Well, one of the things that we are working on right now is the Unity and Reform Commission. I want people to really try to give that a chance. I'm on that commission. Senator Sanders appointed 8 kick-ass people to that commission, and I'm one of those. Nomiki is another one of those. There are others that are there, and we are working through that process. We're going to work on super delegates and other things that really came out during the primary. Hopefully we can make the change. But I do want people not to rest all of their hopes in an institution or an organization or systems. This is really about the grassroots continuing to demand of the Democratic Party. Make a demand. Frederick Douglass said power can seize nothing without a demand. But I do want people, I really do. Now, I'm a rogue Democrat, and they don't appreciate it. I am an unbossed Shirley Chisholm Bernie-crat, right? But I do want people to continue to push the Democratic Party hard to be everything that it is supposed to be, but give the Unity Reform Commission a chance. Okay. We're going to fight on.
Okay, so I'm for pushing, holding their, a lot of people wanted to hold Hillary Clinton's feet to the fire after the election. I'm for holding their feet to the fire right now, before the election.
Right now.
Yeah.
No, we got to do it right now. And if the Democratic Party just is unable or unwilling to go back to its FDR roots, I don't want it to go too far back, Jimmy, because if it go too far back, it ain't good for my folks. But I
hear you.
Just FDR.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll stop there.
Right, we're going to stop there.
Okay.
But they need to go back to their roots and really be that kind of party. And if they're unwilling and unable to do that, then they don't deserve the votes of the people.
I agree.
And maybe something else needs to be started. I hear there's a draft burning for a People's Party going on.
I'm on that. We're trying to draft them.
Yeah, maybe. I am too. I want them to do this.
Yeah,
Let the battle of the 70-somethings commence.
Let's do it,
Yeah,
right? The most popular politician in the country.
In the country, 80% Democrats, 73% African Americans, 60-something% of our Hispanic sisters and brothers, over 50-something% of women, like 54%. And you know why he is? Because he has heart-soul agreement.
That's right.
And he talks about that it's all about us. It's not me, it's us. And that's what this is about, Jimmy. It's about all of us.
Okay. Thank you for your leadership, Nina. I really appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. Nina Turner, everybody. Hey, the next live Jimmy Dore show is July 17th. That's right, July 17th. That's a Monday in Burbank, California. Get your tickets right down here or go to jimmydorecomedy.com. July 17th, Burbank, California, live Jimmy Dore show.